Hey guys, we're Paul and Natasha from Nomadic-AF. Today we are going to be debunking the travel is expensive myth.
Yeah, if you spend a lot of time looking at travel influences, you're probably thinking it's just travel's way too expensive and unattainable for most people, and that's not the case.
Yeah, if you think your bank account is holding you back from traveling, you might be wrong.
Right. So let's look at some of the top reasons people think travel is expensive and maybe kind of debunk.
Yeah, we
this
can get
thinking.
into how we do travel for super cheap and how you can too.
All right. So first, I want to start off saying, like, we've been doing this for 13 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I honestly and truly believe, and I can produce receipts, that full-time traveling is cheaper than living a normal life in the USA.
Yeah, the reality is it's very attainable.
If you're watching these luxury influencers or travel influencers, it may not look that way.
And if that's the life you want to have, it's not good for you. But
yeah, but this travel life, this nonstop travel, is attainable. It really is, and it's cheaper than a regular life in the USA.
Yeah, you can leave tomorrow if you wanted,
Yep.
probably with what you got in your bank account.
Yep. So let's take a look at a few of these things that people think, oh, travel's so expensive, I can't do it because of this.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's talk about flights. Okay. If you're in the States, flights are expensive. That's true.
They're so expensive.
We literally today, we just booked flights together from a beach town in Mexico to Mexico City. Yeah. With bags, taxes, everything. For the two of us, it was less than $100.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that is actually a little pricier than we're normally.
I thought it was expensive.
That's a little pricier than we normally pay. Flights, if you're in the States going from state to state, yeah, they're expensive. But if you can be flexible, I mean, we found flights from New York City to Jamaica for $89 a person.
Yeah.
Which is less than some people's monthly.
We snapped those up.
Yeah, snapped them up immediately. And same with, we found them from Columbus, Ohio to Costa Rica. As soon as we saw them, we bought them. $80 each.
Yeah, and you do need to be a little flexible.
You have to be flexible is the thing. If you're seeing flights from like Chicago to LA for $900, yeah, that's unattainable for most people, but It's not always like that. Get online and just look. And if you can be flexible, you can be out of the country within a week for less than $100.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of flight websites that can help you with that as well.
Yep.
In addition to flights, accommodations are another big travel thing that people think are super expensive. And let me just tell you, vacations are totally different than full-time travel.
Exactly. We don't stay in the same places people who vacation do.
Yeah, we're not staying in all-inclusive resorts. We're renting a house or renting something long-term. Long-term for us is like a month. But, and yeah, we're finding great deals whenever we can. Again, flexibility is key.
Yeah, flexibility is key. But when you're seeing your friends stay in all-inclusive resorts or travel influencers staying in these giant, beautiful hotels, that is unattainable. We can't do it, and we rarely do, if ever. But accommodation can be super cheap. I mean, like we said before, if you look at our house sitting videos, we live for free 6 months a year.
Yeah, and the other 6 months a year, we pay next to nothing.
Right. I mean, we looked up our old apartment in Ohio, in just a shitty area in Ohio, and it's over $1,000 a month for a one-bedroom shitty apartment.
Yeah.
And we have this like huge 2-bedroom next to the beach in Mexico.
Ridiculously massive house.
Massive. It's way more than, but it's less than $700 a month, and this is more than we have ever
paid. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of places you can find, even in this town, for $300-400 a month, and it's not a shithole. I mean.
Yeah, and what most people would spend in one of these luxury all-inclusives for a week or something,
we could live months.
Yeah, we could live months. We would never pay that much for 1 month of rent.
Right. Accommodations can be expensive when you travel if that's what you choose, but there are hostels, there are Airbnbs that are dirt cheap, there are shared rooms. I mean, if you really have the travel bug and you really have to get out of the States and away from your situation, you can travel for next to nothing. You can live very cheaply on accommodations overseas.
Yeah,
very
for
cheaply.
Sure.
Yeah. A big part of travel, a lot of the fun is food, right?
That's one of my favorite things.
Right. It's trying new food, and like Mexico where we live, holy shit, we got the best food
in the world, maybe.
Maybe in the world. But anyway, so you got to eat, right? And everybody thinks this is going to be a huge expense, but it really doesn't have to be. I mean, you don't have to live where the tourists live,
Yeah,
right?
get off the beaten path and find out where the locals go. Even if you are in a super touristy area, the workers don't eat at those restaurants that they work at. So ask them where the hell they go for lunch and follow them down the street to the cheap taco spot.
Right. So just like 2 blocks from here is the beach, and the restaurants. This may sound cheap for the U.S., but meals there are the most expensive meals are $10 or $15. That's
for like a shrimp dinner.
For a shrimp dinner, that's
yeah.
very expensive for Mexico.
It's
that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Whereas we can go 2 blocks this way and get the same meal for
80 pesos.
80 pesos, $4, $5. Yeah. So yeah, food does take up a considerable amount of money. But be smart about it. Don't eat where the tourists eat. If you're staying somewhere longer than a week, get a kitchen, even if it's a hostel kitchen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So if you're on the ground and you're worried, oh man, I'm going to be here a couple weeks and that dinner over there is $30. Like, that's not how it is.
That's
just
not how it works.
Explore a little, ask people, talk to people. You can eat for like nothing, and it can be good and healthy food. It's just you're not paying tourist prices.
Top dollar for it, yeah. So another really expensive part of travel in people's minds is getting around, and that includes like renting cars, rideshare services like Uber and Didi and whatever else the rideshares are in the States and Canada. But you don't have to use all those, especially in places like Mexico where we are. It's extremely walkable. You do not need to rent a car for the most part. Maybe in some instances you do.
We've never rented a car in 13 years.
Yeah.
Never once. And we've lived all over.
Yeah, and we even have just recently uploaded a video about the difference in price of rideshare here versus the US, and it's astronomically different.
Yeah, we can get across town in a taxi for $2. That's like, you can't even step into a taxi for $2 in the States.
No.
But yeah, I'm sorry. It's very inexpensive to get around when you're outside of the United States. So if you're worried about food, accommodations, getting around, all of that can be done very cheaply.
Yeah,
right?
Public transport too.
Public transport, yeah, the buses are like
7 pesos
7
here,
pesos, which is less than 50 cents,
yeah,
30 to 50 cents. But pick somewhere also, which is what we do. I mean, we're kind of pros at this. We've been doing it for a long time. Is we choose to go to walkable places. You know what I mean? Like when we came to Mazatlan, we didn't look up in the Golden Zone and stuff like that. We looked right at Centro because
where we knew we could walk to everything.
Everything. Stores, restaurants, every single thing you need is walkable. Sometimes we hop in a taxi to go somewhere, but only if we want to.
It's very rarely.
Yeah. So once you're on the ground, you're set. If you find a walkable place, you don't need to pay all this money to get around.
It's healthier too.
Yeah.
A really expensive thing that can add up if you're traveling full time is activities and excursions. Okay. We very rarely do. We definitely don't live like the vacation lifestyle where we do activity per day. We probably break what a normal vacationer would do into like 3 months.
Right. And you're always, when you're on vacation, you're always like, I got to make the most of this. I got to do something all the time. Whereas,
just relax,
man. A trip to the beach is free. You know, we sat at the beach yesterday for 8 hours. That's not true. For 6 hours.
It was 6. Yeah, we got
for
a lot
nothing.
of sun.
You know, it was a great day. We walk around, we play tourists, and it doesn't cost a penny. You know, go to the museums, go to the aquariums. These are all very inexpensive things to do.
Yeah, and again, I know I keep harping on Mexico, but in places like Mexico and a lot of other places do this too, on Sundays, you get free activities for the locals and for tourists too, because you just happen to be there.
Right. Yeah, so don't worry about like filling all your days up, because that's not how it works when you live out of the country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to pack everything into your 2-week vacation if you're lucky enough to get 2 weeks.
Right.
You know, these excursions, you do them once every couple weeks to a month, and
Yeah.
it kind of eases the financial burden when you do
Eases
it.
the financial burden, and it's also just a lot more relaxing knowing you're
No
not
shit.
going from here to here to here, and you have to be here
And
by
you can do it
this
spur
time.
of the moment if you feel
Yeah,
like
you can do it spur of the moment, and you can take 4 hours doing something, whereas you would have to rush it into 45 minutes on another day.
Yeah, so excursions can be expensive when you're vacationing, but you just don't do stuff like that when you live overseas. If you want to go on a whale watching tour, great. I mean, you're not doing the ones from like Expedia. Like you're not paying $100 like this vacationer is.
Yeah.
You're going on a $20 boat ride with a group of people.
Again, this goes back to talking to the locals, because they will be able to help you find the cheapest way to do things too.
Yep.
So if money really is holding you back from traveling, it shouldn't. We have real world examples of us being very
right. And I should know, we didn't come from money. We don't really like. We're a cook and a bartender 13 years ago who got sick of the States and left.
Yeah.
And we haven't been back since once, but
we had no savings account.
No savings, right? Like
to speak of anyway.
And we travel like you know what I mean? Like we live in Playa del Carmen, we live in Manzanillo, we live in Mazatlan, we live in these places people vacation, but it costs us like a
fraction
of what they're paying.
Absolutely.
And we don't want you to just sit at home and say, oh, I can never afford to travel, looking at these luxury travel influencers, because that's unrealistic. That's not how it is.
Life we live today is way cheaper now, even with things being more costly, than when we did live in the States 10, 15 years ago.
Right. So when you live in the States, your rent is at the very least $1,000, right? I mean,
yeah, like a studio apartment is expensive.
For $1,000 a month could be your whole budget living in Mexico. That could be your rent, your transpo, your food, everything.
Entertainment.
And you've got the beach like 2 blocks away, so you have stuff to do. And it makes me sad when I see people like, oh my God, I got to get out of here, but I can't afford it. And they don't realize living in the States is considerably more expensive than living somewhere else and being like a perpetual tourist.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can be done. Like in the comments, if you have questions about like, oh, well, I live in the States and I want to live here in Mexico, but I can't afford whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, we'll show you how cheap it is. Even groceries, everything is cheaper here.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to do a video about the cost of utilities here in Mexico, because they're so freaking cheap compared to the States too.
If you run your air in the summer, I guarantee our rent is lower than your electric bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so don't get discouraged. If money is why you're not traveling,
if we can do it, you can too.
I promise you, you can. All right, good luck out there.